Well, the sun's back out in England at the moment, which means the boot fairs have restarted, and I picked up this abomination for just £1. And I didn't really look at it much. I mean, I gave it my standard looks over and immediately thought, well, this is terrible, with the cobwebs and insects, the lawn that seems to have entered the bottom of the computer, the rust, the rusty USB ports on the front. That is actually a bug on top. I think he's still alive. Yeah, so amongst all the shrubbery that is mostly baked on and what looks to be bird poo, that's a bug, and in our experience on this channel, touching him will stop the computer from working, so he stays, whatever he is. Yeah, I don't really know what the specs are or anything, but if we look around inside, we can see somewhere under the cobwebs is a power supply, CIT one, which isn't great. They usually come with these types of cases. Nicotine dust on the fans. What is a stock Intel cooler? There is RAM. I don't want to touch it. There's a hard drive, an SSD. I think an SSD, completely unbranded and also stained yellow. That's nice. Definitely not a smoker's computer. And it says something. Transfer drive for consumer? For customer? I can't read it. That handwriting's terrible. It has something written on it. Transfer's about the only word I can make out. There's an actual bit of wood in the bottom. I said I wasn't going to touch things, but that is just wood. Yeah, the guy just wanted rid. He just does clearances. Whatever it is, it's got to go, which is one of the best bits about boot fairs. I don't really want to clean it yet because that'll likely stop it from working if it even does. So why don't we plug it in? They just get worse and worse all the time. But hey, for £1, there's a motherboard of some sort, H61 motherboard, which is new-ish. If that works, it's worth £1. I'm not plugging in mice and keyboards because, yeah, all the rear ports are rusty as well. There's nothing interesting going on behind the Mac other than rust. And it has just left a trail of dirt down the bottom here on the desk. Does it even have HDMI? It does have VGA though, so I might need to go and get a VGA cable real quick. The bug is still crawling his way across, but I have dug out a VGA cable. I don't think this would really support a graphics card, given it's already running various dongles, adapters and gizmos to various parts of the computer. It has a DVD drive that's not plugged in. Very careful not to disturb the wildlife. Now, I hold out very little hope that this will do anything. Does it turn on? Okay, it's on. There's a lot of interesting noises that I can't tell if they're electrical or just fans. It's got UEFI. Okay, I wasn't expecting it to get this far. That turned on instantly. I don't like the sound of that power supply. Load optimized defaults and boot. It's going. It's working. Well, it shorted everything. But it did start turning on, so there's Windows 10 on here somewhere, but I think the power supply may have just died. No. Well, the CIT power supplies, everyone. Let me just go and whack a new power supply in this. Very weird looking bug. Come on, just go there. Nope, nope. We're not a nature channel, but he's going outside. I believe his friends may have killed the power supply. So, we know it does do something, but the power supply, let's be honest, in this current state, these were bad when they were made. Somehow it's made it this far, and yeah, it was able to start booting. The moment it did try and boot to something, which looked like Windows 10, it just died. So I'm guessing it's running Windows 10. Then again, it's also got 2 drives in it, and one of them says recovery. So unplug that. I don't like the electrical noises. Flip this over. I'm not going to dislodge the dirt. I hadn't even noticed the mud on the bottom. This is just awful. But it did turn on. Hey, 3 rusty screws. Oh yeah, this has just gone mouldy. Okay, is it hooked up to the fan? Yeah, that is nasty and junk. That's going in the bin. Actual power supply. And if we've only got one SATA port, I'll plug in the SSD because it looks like the newest part of this entire computer. Right, just to double check, does it now actually still turn on? Okay, it's not making electrical noises, but now it's beeping furiously. I've not actually touched anything other than change the power supply. Okay, the incessant beeping continues. What now? Just 20 pin. Nothing. More beeping. Now it just beeps and shuts down. Right, try again. Why? I say why. Look at it. Right, what if we take out the RAM? 4GB stick of Elixir RAM. Unknown stick of Kingston. Right, we'll go with the Kingston stick, because that's from a brand I've heard of. Turns on, then turns off. Oh, now it works. It must have jogged the RAM. Right, we'll put that to one side for now. Can we enter the BIOS? A nice BIOS. What's it actually running? Okay, it has a 3D Mark 2001 boost mode. Okay, it is running a Core i5-2400. How much RAM is actually in it? Can we see how much RAM is in it? Okay, it's got a 4GB stick, so there was 8 gigs of RAM in here. Whether or not this stick actually survived, this might have been fried by the power supply. And it doesn't sound terrible anymore. Okay, it may actually still work. What happens now if we try and boot to Windows? I don't think it'll go very well, but let's give it a shot. Okay, so the only actual thing plugged in now is the little SSD down the bottom. So what's it actually going to do? It was booting up to Windows before, and it is a lot quieter now because it was just the power supply dying. Okay, BIOS is... I was about to say BIOS is back to defaults, but now it boots to Windows XP. So I'm guessing it's running 2 operating systems. One on the hot... This... Oh, this is awful. Right, so I'm guessing it's running 2 operating systems. Windows 10 on this is what it looked like it was booting to before, and I'm guessing Windows XP on an SSD, which explains why it says transfer on it. Okay, the fans have now kicked in to making loads of noise. That's fine. We can just let that make noise. Other than that, the computer is fine. What is this setup? Okay, so it looks like an old person's computer. It's booted us up to the Skype login. I have no idea how old this is. AVG, that's good. A metric ton of applications. Does this even have graphics drivers? I mean, this is 2nd gen Core i series and it's running Windows XP. What information do we get? Debra. This was Debra's computer. Oh, this is authentic. The Safari web browser for Windows XP. What even are these? We've got AVG, Bitdefender, Magic's Video Deluxe, Real.com, Real Player, Easy Screen Saver Studio, Outlook Backups, more AVG, PDF to Word, Monkey, Pinball, Jimmy White Cue Ball 2, and free AOL unlimited internet. What is Monkey? Oh, yeah, it's called Monkey. Buenos dias, Debra. It's nice to see you. How long has it been? Monkey? Alright, can we fix the resolution? Is there a way of fixing this resolution? Is it possible? Okay, it is running Intel HD graphics. Right, do 1024 by 768. Okay, it does look a bit more normal. What is B? There's just a thing. Just a window that we can't do anything about. What is on here? I mean, why is it see-through? I don't know if you can make that out. It's got like aero effects going on. No, he can't go under the taskbar. Right, yeah, look, it's got aero effects on Windows XP. Oh, this is a cursed install. What's she got going on down the bottom? Debra has Intel HD, good. An image of a banana that we can't do anything with. Web browser. She's got Word in a foreign language. Skype, AVG, Security Center, something else we can't click. We've got Weirgriven, Virus Shield Utelschlacken, and Real Player. Does any of these have a date? When was the last time this was used? This install of Windows XP is from 2008, apparently. At least that's when the Heart shortcut was made. Oh, we've just had a virus warning. Was Debra German? It wants to get rid of Monkey. No. Or, sorry, Knee. You forget, she's got like 3 different forms of antivirus. What is free AOL? Oh, it just loads up Safari. This is beyond cursed. Right, let's go through a few of the... She has Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Genuinely, the Tony Hawk's is on here. Maybe a grandson? Right, let's try one of these. What, Jimmy White's... Jimmy... I can't stop laughing. Jimmy White's Cue Ball World Launcher. Right, play game. File not found. Oh no, it's broken. Oh, we can't play it. Are the files on here? Where would they be? Program files. Oh, this is so horrible. No, that doesn't fix it. We can't play it without the CD. Oh. No, it's working. Oh, this is a gaming beast. I bet we're on like the highest settings. I think my granddad had this game. What are the controls? It's a bit provocative. The thing is though, this is relatively modern computer-wise. This can still do an awful lot specifications-wise if that other 4 gig stick works. But it's running Windows XP. How do we... Oh, look at the physics on that. Oh, foul. The invisible hand man will beat us now. Okay, that's enough Jimmy White's cue ball. Okay, you can't Alt F4 out of this. I guarantee you there's like a million. Is there Internet Explorer on here? This looks like someone that just agreed to install everything whenever it asked. Internet Explorer has encountered a problem. Right! Okay, I think they might have broken Internet Explorer, which is why they have Safari. Did they take this to a shop? I mean, they got Windows XP running on here. Printer. Okay, printer is also a virus. How many of these? Okay, all of these are viruses apparently. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3? Why is this even a computer? This is just a Windows XP install filled with viruses. You know what? Both the computer and its operating system are just infected. We're running Windows XP on the SSD, which means if I plug in that hard drive, is that just going to straight up be Windows 10? Also, this works. What graphics settings was she using? You don't get any graphics settings, probably why Debra liked this one. I'm amazed it doesn't need like a disc or something, so I'm guessing this is a newer version of the game? Right. Tony Hawk works. He's now wearing glasses. Easy screensaver? 2005. What is this software? This is like a really basic, hideous editor, yeah. Oh, that's a Debra. That's a Debra right there. Yeah, that's perfect. Also worth noting, she got this wallpaper from the official magazine. AVG, do we have any viruses? Probably. I think she might have been German, because all the software on here that's not in English is in German. PDF to Word. Oh, you only have 99 times to try PDF to Word. This is probably a virus. Okay, Internet Explorer's died again. We've not even touched it. Okay, for some reason, server's busy. Is this doing it online? Right, DXDiag. The computer is called Barbara 40C6, 4 gigs of RAM, Core i5-2400, Intel HD graphics. What else is on here? Loads of junk. Easy email sender. Why? This is an unregistered version. This nag screen doesn't appear in the registered version and then takes you to a random website. .cgi. Oh, he's talking to us now. Right, do a scan and then we'll see if it finds anything. Given that she's got about 3 different forms of antivirus installed. The irony of him being here with sunglasses while it looks for him as a virus. You can't make it up, really. I'll look at the fear in his eyes. Yeah, they're scanning for you. I don't know how good this AVG version is, but yeah, they probably got this from a toolbar, which makes me so curious if we could look at Internet Explorer, but it just dies, trying to enjoy his last moments of life. Well, miraculously, it found nothing at all. So, yeah, apparently this is a completely fine install of Windows, and there's a problem occurring with some hardware down the bottom. Definitely no results of anything to do with this. Right, what is on that other hard drive? I'm so confused by this aero look that is going on. I'm assuming that's probably some sort of spyware or adware, but we know that Windows XP is on here, because I don't remember that shutdown screen that doesn't actually take up the whole screen. Let's unplug this. Okay, the hard drive has spun up. Why don't we reboot it and see what's actually located on that hard drive? Okay, so let's find out what's on the hard drive. So this absolutely mangled SSD is weirdly a working Windows XP install. I don't know why they've gone to the effort of doing that, given it says transfer on it. I'm guessing this is from an old PC, but this looks to be Windows 10. Why would you dual boot XP and 10, especially a 2008 nearly a 20-year-old install of Windows XP full of bloatware and viruses, and probably a couple of the... This isn't even Windows 10, is it? Sorry, they're dual booting Windows XP and Windows 8. There are no words. This is old school Windows 8. Still Debra. I haven't seen this in years. Does the wireless adapter in this still work? I mean, it's quite quick for a hard drive, but that just raises more questions. What was this for? Yeah, it's got drivers. The old school, it's not even Windows 8.1, it's just old school Windows 8. Yeah, Windows 8 wasn't great, was it? I mean, given that you can tab your way back to the desktop to ignore whatever abomination is happening here. I don't think it's ever featured on the channel before because Why would it have? I'm guessing Debra was a heavy smoker and used her computers in the field. I've always said she was an interesting woman. Does USB 3 work on here? I mean, that is the basis of a budget build in here. For £1, I'm kind of just astonished it works. If we ignore that this is actually a bomb and is going straight in the bin, it's not actually a bad deal. This is probably one of the first times Windows 8 on here has ever been used. Steam is no longer supported on your operating system. I've got to give it credit. For a hard drive, it is actually rather responsive. Right, I'm going to let it finish doing whatever setup it's doing, and then hopefully we'll be able to actually get things installed. Right, while we wait for 3D Mark to carry on downloading, I am just going to see if maybe the other RAM stick does actually work, because then we get 8 gigs and dual channel. We can't just get something nice, can we? Is it just going to beep? We take out both sticks. Just try this one, see if it did survive, because maybe it's the slot on the board died. Nope, now it just turns off and on. That stick isn't dead, so if this doesn't work, it's the board. Right, we're just going to have to run it in single channel, because I don't think until this board's been taken out and cleaned, this is ever going to work. So get this installed, see if it survives, and then see if there's anything this PC can do before we take it apart. Because it does function. We should get a score of some capacity. I just hope it can actually do something here. This is I don't use Windows 8. Windows Update needs my help. Windows Update hasn't been able to check for updates for the last 30 days. That's not my problem, that's Debra's. Unknown error occurred. DXGI error not currently available. We're going back to Windows XP. Bring back my cursed Windows XP install. That's what we're running with. Oh no, okay, yeah. This is what happens when you open this XP install. We've got a serious error. Don't send. Something. Copen. New registration. Get rid of that. Skype gone. Chronosoft. Something or other. Right. Install 3D Mark. I've given up with 3D Mark because for some reason on this absolute abomination of a Windows XP install doesn't work, which I'd imagine is something to do with the 100 or so viruses it's found. Half-Life 2 though does start. Can it do 720p? It doesn't run it fine on Windows 8 for some unknown reason, but it runs it fine here on Windows XP. Probably because this is the original 2004 release, but hey, it is a Windows XP computer. For all intents and purposes, that's the first thing it booted up to. So yeah, Half-Life 2 here, we are getting, I think it's running with high settings, and we're getting sort of like 40 to 60 FPS outdoors. And you know what the stupidest thing is? The VGA quality is actually really quite nice. I mean, it's not exactly fantastic, but I wonder if it can launch Crysis. Can we try that? I mean, we can see that it runs Half-Life 2 absolutely fine. I wonder if anyone's thought to try running Crysis on something like that. You know, that's a fair test. We can't run 3D Mark. It's this weird abomination of a computer. Crysis seems like a fair test. So Half-Life 2, not a problem. What about if we go ahead now and started installing Crysis? Out of all the security things on this computer it wants to block, Half-Life 2 is the only one. Top of the morning to you, Debra. It's always nice to start the day off with you. Happy New Year's Day. Have you made your New Year's resolutions yet? Yeah, the CMOS battery's fried. Is it actually gonna go in game? I mean, it's left my desk covered in dirt and mud, and it blew up its own power supply, and also now only works with 1 stick of RAM. It's covered in rust, bugs, who knows what else. I mean, if it can launch Crysis, I have my usual benchmark file, because this is my actual Crysis install, with most things. The bug is back. He's just wandering over the SATA cable. Okay, 9, 10 FPS? What if we go to lower settings? It is running Crysis, to be fair. This might be a little bit more intensive than Jimmy White's cue ball. Debras PC is now in Crysis, and I think it's probably having a crisis trying to do this, but it is running at 30-ish FPS. I mean, it's between 20 and 30. It looks downright hideous, but it's actually running. I mean, I wasn't actually expecting for it to actually get in-game, achieve a playable frame rate. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks pretty bad, and it is running in DirectX 9, which is probably giving it a good chance of actually achieving a frame rate. But hey, we are actually playing Crysis on this PC, on the original Windows XP install, which is not what I was expecting. Like, it's not exactly a gaming beast because it is just an Intel HD setup. There's far worse experiences seen on the channel than this. I mean, it's handling explosions, it's handling physics effects fine because, well, it does actually have a Sandy Bridge Core i5 in here. I wonder if it can run anything slightly new. So it can do Half-Life 2, it can do Crysis, it can do all the viruses that are on here. Can it run something like Well, unfortunately, it won't detect my bigger games drive, so instead I'm running Mount & Blade Warband with whatever settings it started with. I think it defaulted to high, and then we also have the largest battle size enabled, just to see if I could really stress it out. And honestly, I don't think the processor's really having to worry too much here. More impressively is the Intel HD is managing this, which is a sort of 2010 to 2015 era title. Not exactly like it looks like one, but it is running at sort of 20 to 30 FPS. It does sound a bit ridiculous. Mount & Blade Warband is not exactly the prettiest game in the world, but it is modern and popular and still played by lots of people on Steam every day. And Debra's computer, I don't really want to touch it, is running it without fault. I mean, it's not exactly a great frame rate, but I'm not arguing that you could configure that around. So, yeah, I think it is just the graphics chip that's struggling, but come on, we're using Intel HD in a computer that has many, many issues, and it's running in single channel. This is genuinely worst case scenario, and I can kind of see how Debra was using this for so long. So why don't we actually see how bad things are inside, and see if it does actually survive being taken apart, because I'm not looking forward to that. So we're now on to day 2, and let's be honest, it does actually work. So for the money, we've actually got what is a relatively competent computer built into one of these horrible generic cases you see everywhere, and with plenty of detritus actually surrounding it all. So, I mean, I'd say it's cost me a power supply, but even then, I've got so many of these leftover FSP groups, and they still sell for like £2-3 on eBay, that they more or less are worthless. That's why I keep them, they're good power supplies. But I suppose we should probably clear some space and try and get this cleared out. I think what we do is we see just what it can do in its basic form, and then see if there's any modifications we can make that could, well, make this more of a computer that you'd actually want to use. Because, well, it's a pretty good Windows XP machine. I can give Debra credit there. At least she has got an overkill XP computer, which I think we can all agree we weren't expecting from today. But I also need to get all this dirt put in the bin, because it's everywhere. Everything is caked in dirt now. Look at the mound of dirt it's left where it's got warm enough to actually push it off, almost. And there's still more on the bottom. Where do we even begin? The bin's going to have to go on the desk. The SSD does work. That's Debra's Windows XP install. The hard drive is her Windows 8 install. We have a monumental amount of SATA cables everywhere. Let's get these unplugged. Definitely, I think Debra was a bit of a smoker, because there is fluffy nicotine dust all over the CPU fan. I don't know where you begin, because there's so much growing. I'm going to try and not touch the front I/O, because the front I/O is actually in there, and the USB ports, despite being covered in rust, do function. That's beautiful wiring right there. That's a 2010s cheap case special, covered in cigarette filth. Right, I'm going to try and restore this to whatever former glory it once had. Maybe when Debra was still playing solitaire and with all her viruses. Plenty of this to deal with. Not your average computer cleaning. Oh, that's working. Look at that. Right, now it begins. Well, that took quite a while to do. I mean, most of it was just getting the detritus out of the computer, because there was so much actually in there. And, I mean, the cooler, I did actually go through the effort of cleaning it all up and getting all the dust and nicotine bits out. And yeah, the clips have just, you can see they're just peeling straight off. So they are completely cooked. I shouldn't have touched it, but that's the Intel pushpin experience. If you aren't thermally throttling, don't take them off. Fortunately though, I did have one left over from a bundle that didn't work out, so we do have a new cooler on there. I've put the RAM back in after giving it a good clean. It's not pristine, but hey, compare it to how it was before, this looks brand new. I've not yet tried turning it on, and I have polished the desk because there was just dirt everywhere. And I believe Debra may have passed away, hence why this has just been sat in storage and then taken to a boot fair for a clearance. But let's just double check it works. It still doesn't like the RAM. I don't know what's going on with the RAM. Maybe it's timings? I don't know what's going on with this RAM at all. But I'm wondering if maybe we can set like a RAM speed profile. I mean, I don't know what speed. This is 1333 megahertz and that one is 1600. So maybe it's a speed mismatch? What if we set that to 1066? And then we add the RAM back in. So I've lowered the RAM speed. Okay, now it works. 8 gigs total. So it is RAM speed related. Performance enhanced. What if we set it to extreme? See if maybe that does some really tight timings. Weird things happening with the RAM, but it works under extreme mode. So with that set to extreme, it functions. Turbo boost is as high as it goes. Virus infested Windows XP. So now this system's all clean. It's all working. Can we now launch Crysis real quick? Who would have thought that we're now using Crysis as a metric of performance in the modern day again? And all of this has netted us some slightly more stable performance in Crysis. That's a solid 20% uplift in performance there in Crysis. I mean, I'm still going to take this as a win. Just by cleaning the system and actually getting it slightly nicer, we have actually got a system that will play Crysis. Yeah, it looks pretty ugly. Yes, it's an 800 by 600, but you know what? That's for £1. It runs Crysis. Yes, it's the Intel HD experience, and we are trying our luck quite a lot here. That's an improvement. It's also worth noting the system is dead quiet. It is a very quiet machine. That fan actually cleaned up okay. I did have to take it outside. It was so caked in nicotine dust that even just scrubbing it was just a pain. Debra had the right idea. This runs Crysis absolutely beautifully at lower settings, which I doubt she ever tried playing given she was a big fan of Jimmy White's cue ball, but that is an improvement. I cannot believe we've reached the point where bootfair PCs now play Crysis. Because this is the type of stuff you're getting in house clearances anymore. It's no longer the Pentium 4s. I mean, it is still a Windows XP machine. It's a better one than I was expecting. And I do wonder if maybe the Ethernet port survived. We've not actually tried the Ethernet port yet. In fact, we don't even need to. Debra had a wireless adapter installed because Debra was balling and hip. I mean, that's a pretty good place to start with. Core i5-2400, we've got the 95 watt TDP that I've increased a little bit. It's running at 3.2 gigahertz. Does it boost? Okay, it doesn't boost, but that's fine. After having dealt with the AMD A8, the fact that these Core i5-2400s just run this well out of the box, even in something like this, it's why they're so good. So we need Intel HD, Sandy Bridge, Windows drivers. So those are the unofficial drivers, which should be a little bit better. I've used these before. But yeah, I mean, I understand why she was probably running Windows XP. It was probably just all the files from her old Pentium D system transferred onto an SSD and bunged into a generic Office build. Why on earth it comes with Windows 8, I have absolutely no idea. Maybe someone installed that for her and said it can dual boot, but Debra wasn't interested. Debra had Windows XP on here, and as far as a Windows XP PC goes, absolutely overkill. Sandy Bridge in the modern day with an SSD, it's still all you really need. It's why so many people are still using it, because even this horrible little bootfair PC in this basic chassis and case, absolutely overkill. I would like to see if it can run GTA 5, not even stressing out the Core i5 here. I was so used to using the AMD equivalents of the era from the last week or so that I forgot that, you know what, Sandy Bridge, I will do a dedicated Core i5-2500 video because I genuinely believe they're still pretty good. While we're here, I am just going to get rid of the old AMD drivers that are on here. And then when we've restarted, why don't we see if this can actually manage GTA 5? We've not got any graphics card. It cost us £1. We know it can play Crysis. We know it can run games up to sort of about 2010 with Warband. But can it play GTA 5? With no modifications other than being cleaned. I wasn't actually expecting it to just straight up launch. I was thinking that maybe there'd be some errors or conflicts. It is still just the VGA cable from the computer, and it is launching GTA 5. I mean, some of these statistics are a little bit wrong. Apparently we're running at 6 gigahertz, but here we are. and it has been a while. 10 FPS? 12 FPS? Yeah, I mean, it's in-game. Right, I'm gonna get busy here with the settings config because I can get this to work. Well, with a little bit of tweaking around in the config file, maybe a little bit more than just tweaking around in the config file, it's not exactly what I'd call spectacular, but we do get at least smooth enough frame times that you could call GTA 5 almost playable. I mean, provided you're someone that understands 17 to 20 FPS with smooth enough frame times on an Intel HD graphics is playable when you have no choice. Yeah, it's not great, is it really? I mean, we got 30-ish FPS in Crysis, but it's taken about 240p with lots of extensive modifications, no shadows, no reflections, reduced level of detail, bits and pieces like that, to try and get anything resembling playability. But at the same time, it is running, it's not crashing, nothing's overheating, the processor's got plenty of headroom. It really is just that Intel HD can't do much more than this in something like GTA 5. Like, it is worth saying, this is fully controllable. There are no problems with the frame pacing or anything like that going on. I'm a little bit curious if we try and go online though. Provided, you know, you're not sat too close to the monitor, it's not too bad, but hey, it's actually running about the same. That's kind of an oddity for GTA Online, especially in the legacy version, but this is what I mean. When your frame rate is so low, actually this is running better. We're getting a higher frame rate here in GTA Online. We're playing with Intel HD graphics. So there's the clue. If you want to play GTA on Legacy better than single player, simply run it on Intel HD, and then it has no choice but to run slightly better. Averages of 13 FPS, lows of 10. Surprisingly controllable experience, to be honest. I've definitely had worse. Wonder if it'll do Linux. I don't think Linux will be able to do much, if anything, because if Ethernet works, yeah, Ethernet works fine. Unfortunately, it won't be able to launch any of these. Have we got anything that's relatively easy? We'll try downloading Half-Life, see what it does, run NeoFetch. Intel HD, the Core i5-2400 at 3.4 GHz. It's running Elementary OS fine. It browses the web fine. I mean, without having any degree of a remotely modern graphics card in here, it is nothing more than, yeah, it browses the web speedy. We'll try an A game. Maybe I'm being stupid, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I've tried Half-Life, which I know did have an apparent Linux native port. I've just tried Counter-Strike Source, which I know had a proper Linux port, and no dice. Through command line or just through the console, nothing. It just refuses to open. So instead, just to prove it can do some gaming, we're going to do, there we go, just install OpenTTD. That'll work. This is working absolutely fine. So if you wanted to play a bit of OpenTTD, well, you can with no problems whatsoever on Intel HD still. I mean, it's only having to do software rendering, but when you think this is a VGA signal, actually not too bad. I just have to make sure I don't get in the trap of playing plenty of OpenTTD now it's working. As it stands at the moment, we've got drivers, we've got everything Intel HD needs, I've made sure of it, but it'll run things like OpenTTD, it'll do your web browsing. Is there anything more that we can do with this system before we actually have to upgrade it further? Now, I've come up with a plan. And what I want to do is I'm going to pitch you a scenario. What if you were to buy a computer like this from the boot fair, and you weren't like me, with stacks of graphics cards lying everywhere? I'm looking over at a stack of many, many graphics cards over there. None of them worth anything, keep in mind. Can we do anything with the Intel HD graphics? And by that what I mean is, can we overclock them and get out more performance? So what I want to do is I'm going to try and get a baseline score in 3D Mark. We are then going to see how much higher we can get it, and then see if we can do any gaming at all on the system as it is. We've never actually stopped to take a look at Intel HD graphics, at least never longer than firing up a couple of titles. Can it run CloudGate? I'm sure it will load it eventually. I don't think it's very happy. Right, try again. Oh, I forget you can do that. That's a stupid shortcut from the old being in school days, being able to turn the computer upside down. It should be able to run it. I mean, it can play GTA 5, it can play Crysis, but being able to run CloudGate at least gives us a score we can work from. I could just put in a graphics card and not torture myself, but no, we're going with this. There we go, it's starting this time. No, I don't think it's running again. Right, let me think of another benchmark we can run, because it's not happy. 3D Mark's CloudGate doesn't work, the older Vantage doesn't work, but 3D Mark 2005 does. So we're running with this today to see if we can maybe overclock the iGPU and actually eke out some extra performance from Debras PC, because she would have wanted us to overclock the Intel HD chip. Well, unfortunately 3D Mark won't actually give us a score, so we're just going to go for it and see if we can get any extra performance actually out of this. So first thing I wanted to do was to see if maybe we can run at 1600 megahertz on RAM that doesn't support it. Okay, yeah, we can't actually go higher than its rated frequency, which is a bit of a shame, but at the end of the day, it's got tight enough timings with the extreme mode enabled that it's good enough. Should we do 1350? I think off the top of my head, that's about the sort of maximum overclock you could get from this. Everything here's enabled, everything's up to its maximum, and I think what we're gonna do is just try and use the system like this. Now, I'm sure I will try and upgrade it later on the video as probably a little extra bit at the end. Part of the joy of this channel has always been buying something and just using it. And I know some people will say, oh, but this is just Intel HD. I've never actually sat down and properly benchmarked it. Why don't we actually see what you can do if you buy what is, well, Debra's old computer that she didn't have a graphics card in, and then try and actually do some gaming on it, because We've overclocked the graphics card. I'm just going to run through 3D Mark again to make sure it's stable. I'm actually a little bit excited to see just how far we can push things on a system that doesn't even have a graphics card. So yep, there we are, Intel HD graphics, Sandy Bridge, 32nm, 6 unified shaders, DirectX 10.1, we're running the modified 2016 drivers, and this is about as exciting as it looks. I am just going to run hardware monitor to get some metrics through this as well to make sure everything's running as it should be, but it's taken a few days, but we're finally at a point where, you know what, I'm relatively happy with it. It is actually running slightly better with the overclock, 21-year-old benchmark, but we'll ignore that it's a 21-year-old benchmark for a moment and go, you know what, that looks pretty good for a £1 computer. Well, we've got the results in. Our overclock is stable. Intel HD is running at 1346 megahertz as its top boost speed. It tops out at 64 degrees. We are using a little bit extra power, but at the end of the day, it is still Intel HD, and it is going to be the limit. So even if that is at the detriment of performance somehow, it's not exactly the end of the world. It's taken 3 full days, a complete rebuild, a lot of cleaning, and just a lot of fun, really. This has been a video I wasn't planning on making, but these are always my favourite. Why don't we just make sure this is ready to use, and we're pretty much ready to actually benchmark the £1 computer. And I didn't think we'd be doing that today. I don't even really know how we begin to recap all of this, but long story short, I bought a £1 PC from the boot fair, which honestly looked like it had very little chance to actually turn on. And miraculously, it survived about 30 seconds running under its own power supply, which quickly, in standard CIT fashion, fried itself because, well, they weren't good power supplies to begin with, and look at the state of this thing. It's no surprise that it didn't last long. After replacing the power supply, it did boot up provided we took out one of the RAM sticks, and it booted to a very cursed Windows XP install, which is authentic of 2008, full of viruses, and somehow, I'm guessing some technician shop, has managed to port what would probably be from a Pentium 4 or Pentium D system onto what is a Sandy Bridge Core i5 based, somewhat modern computer. They've even got working Intel HD, which means that games work within reason, and once you get past all the viruses, it was actually really speedy. More confusingly, there was also a stock Windows 8 install that looks like it's hardly been touched beyond the initial setup, running on a hard drive. This is the first time in years I've had any experience dealing with Windows 8, and to be fair, it worked fine. There's just not really much you can do with it that you can't really do with Windows 7, and, well, it's just a bit of an odd choice, isn't it? Rather than Windows 8.1 or early Windows 10, you go with the tile-based Windows 8. After this, though, I cleaned out the entire computer, which took a long time to do because it was completely filthy. The initial cooler that was already installed snapped off, so I replaced that, and of course we'd already replaced the power supply, so it did take a little bit of tweaking around to get us to this point, but actually not much.
After this though, the computer was pretty much perfect. We got it running in dual channel thanks to the RAM timings being wrong, which was setting off the errors, and then we've brought it into the modern day. We're now running Windows 10 on it, we've overclocked the Intel HDI GPU, which is extracting about as much performance as we can get out of it from it, and we've seen that it can launch some modern titles. So for a £1 PC, we are lacking a graphics card, but hey, it's got an iGPU and one that's powerful enough to actually launch GTA 5 at questionable frame rates, but ones that some people may deem playable. For a £1 computer though, well, it's actually surprisingly powerful. Now I know it's not an out-and-out gaming beast, but when you look at these specs, well, they're decently modern and still support a lot of new applications and new titles, because, well, we're no longer in the era of Pentium 4 and Pentium D computers being worthless. I mean, look at the bootfair PC we picked up for a similar price a couple of years ago. That had an old Athlon 64 and an AGP slot, and today, in 2026, we've got a Sandy Bridge Core i5 with 4 cores and 4 threads at 3.3 GHz. Yes, the GPU is Intel HD, but we've overclocked it. We've got 8 gigs of DDR3 RAM, no longer DDR or DDR2, actually somewhat modern DDR3, and we've even got SSD storage. Yes, it is an unbranded unit with a Windows XP install on it, but hey, at the end of the day, this was probably a custom build from some local PC shop that was just enough to get her using Windows XP. It's got a nice gigabyte motherboard in there, and it was running Windows XP and Windows 8. It was a nicer experience on Windows XP because it'd been set up more, but hey, Windows 8 was still on there and had proper working GPU drivers, and it was at least past the setup stage. We're running Windows 10 IoT on it for now because I've already got an SSD set up, and overall, to actually get this into a working state, I've just had to clean it and change the CPU cooler, which, to be fair, is my own fault for taking it off. It wasn't thermally throttling or anything, I just felt like cleaning it, and that was a mistake, and I've changed out the power supply for just a generic FSP Group 1, which is reliable, but tops out at 300 watts. And we have got all of this today for the low cost of just £1. Now, I'd usually talk about the system's progression across 3D Mark and what this will mean in different titles, but this computer, I can just about manage to get it to launch through CloudGate, but it will crash after a couple of tests. I nearly got through to the end, but I'm guessing this is a conflict with maybe the modified drivers we're using on the Intel HD, which are actually more reliable than the final Intel ones. I've not tested these on Windows 11, but if you're running Windows 10 and prior, and for some reason have Intel HD, these do work a lot better for actual applications and titles that aren't 3D Mark. Then again, it could be something else, it could be the Windows install, or it could just be this computer. Sometimes when you're dealing with iGPUs from this era, it gets a little bit unhappy. But at the end of the day, this is a full DirectX 10.1 capable machine that has a decent processor, somewhat middling iGPU that we've now overclocked as far as it will go, and before we even look at adding a graphics card, even if we don't today, this is what the computer is. This is what it cost us £1, and is there anything we can do with it? Because, well, I'm no fan of Intel HD, but back in the day, if there was a game out, I can guarantee you someone got it to run. So, how are things going in 2026? If you pick yourself up a computer like this, you don't have a graphics card to whack in it, and you're just using it on the iGPU, can you run any games, and is there any chance of you actually playing anything with the benchmarks? Starting off the benchmarks, we have CSGO, and the reason for this is, well, Counter-Strike 2 doesn't actually launch anymore on Intel HD. I don't think it ever did, but at the end of the day, kinda makes sense. But CSGO is back on Steam and is decently popular, so we ran the game with low in a casual match at first, and returned 33 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 22 FPS. Now, it's not exactly the best experience, but some Intel HD players from back in the day will tell you that yes, they did play it like this. And to be fair, if you were actually playing a competitive game rather than a casual one, you would actually see anywhere from 40 to 50 FPS, which was quite a bit more controllable. At the same time, to try and replicate this, I went into a wingman match, and in the same 720 by 480 resolution with low settings, we were now seeing an average of just north of 60 FPS on our £1 computer. That's right, we're not testing CS 1.6 or CS Source, we are testing the still very popular CSGO, which, you know, is very up there on the Steam rankings. I'm surprised how much of a comeback it's had, and we are playing it completely fine, provided it's simpler scenarios, on our £1 computer. Now, yes, I know this isn't competitive, but think of the price we're paying and what we're running it on. Now, we have already seen a little bit of GTA 5, but given we are now running the system at its most optimal options with the overclocked iGPU, just what does this mean for us? Well, with ultra-low settings in 240p, the main thing I can give it is smooth frame times. We had an average of 18 FPS and 1% lows down to 15 FPS, which doesn't sound playable. But there will definitely be some viewers of this channel that remember the old Intel HD days, and I don't doubt that quite a few people played it through like this. No, it's not exactly a great experience using my ultra-low config, and it's not a great experience being sub 20 FPS, but the thing is, it was controllable. It doesn't look pretty, it doesn't run great, but it's not quite a slideshow. Yes, it is something more akin to a heavy N64 game in terms of frame rate, but hey, it's the best we can do, and this is the first time I think we've had GTA 5 launching on one of these cheap bootfair computers. Moving on to the online version, and performance was pretty much the exact same. We had an average of 17 FPS, with 1% lows down to 15 FPS, so it was virtually indistinguishable from the standard single-player game, which is very odd for GTA Online, especially the legacy version, but hey, you can't really lose much performance when you've got none to begin with. Now, this is one I bet you weren't expecting, because I'm trying to keep this as close to our usual benchmark suite as possible. We have BeamNG here running with the old DirectX 9 port. That's right, you can still access this through Steam, and credit to the BeamNG devs, all of the major updates that may restrict cards from working, they at least keep a backup of them. So this is the last version that will actually work on at least one of these iGPUs, and with the lowest settings in the jungle in 240p, it looked downright hideous, but we did get a 44 FPS average, with 1% lows down to 36 FPS, so actually playable and controllable. Yes, you are running an older version, but at the same time, you are at least able to control it. Just first person is recommended because otherwise the speedometer takes up the entire screen. Genuinely, you're better off playing first person if you want to see what's going on. Simpler maps and scenarios, such as running the hill map, let you double your resolution up to 480p, which isn't much, but it does look a lot more pleasant on the eyes. Now returning 36 FPS on average with 1% lows down to 30 FPS, at least you can play BeamNG to some extent on a £1 computer. Yes, it's an old version, yes, it's low resolutions and low settings, but hey, you are able to run it. Next up, we have a classic of the Intel HD days. I'm sure some people that were looking at buying this back then looked on the unofficial Elder Scrolls Wikipedia, which has honestly a beautiful GPU chart for this game that lists Intel HD as being able to run it with the lowest of settings. And they're not wrong, because with low settings in 800x600, even when everything possible in Skyrim's happening, you're being attacked by wolves, guards, and a random Khajiit from somewhere, you're going into caves and being attacked by more things, it does run at above 30 FPS. Now, frame pacing was a tad funny, especially when you're in areas that would usually offer a higher frame rate, likely because, well, we don't exactly have the highest memory bandwidth on this board, but at this point I'm getting too technical. We are literally talking about a £1 PC that is playing Skyrim with playable frame rates with low settings in 800x600. It looked alright, and it ran okay as well, so I can't really take anything against the system here, it played pretty good. Given Kerbal Space Program's massive resurgence on Steam at the moment, it is becoming a bit of a common addition back into the benchmarks, which is oddly appropriate because, well, this is actually better than, this is a better system than when I first started playing the game. I was playing on a Pentium M and Radeon X300 machine, but here we were able to run the game with low settings in 720p and return 32 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 23 FPS. I'd imagine this game, especially given the era and the fact it's a Unity title, did take into account that a lot of their players would be Intel HD players on laptops, so it does mean you can get a 30 FPS experience in a 720p resolution on this very basic £1 system. Fortunately, with that Core i5-2400, all of the simulations aren't really too much of a problem, and just to prove it's playable, well, actually I got a bit carried away here. Once again, we set off on another mission to the moon. We crashed into it completely because I wasn't really paying full attention, but hey, if I'm able to get to the moon on this, then yeah, you can play KSP on a £1 computer running overclocked Intel HD. Now, we have already seen how the system handles Mount & Blade Warband, but to make things a little bit more intensive, I am running Mount & Blade Warband Viking Conquest, which of course comes with updated graphics. They aren't hugely updated, but they are more strenuous than the base game, and also offers larger battles and different scenarios. With low and medium settings, mostly low settings, I mean you can tell that we've got most things down to low, but we do have some of the fancier effects enabled that weren't too intensive, and a battle size of 60 players and a 720p high definition resolution, we returned 33 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 27 FPS. Now, this was heavily map dependent, because the Core i5, well, we've got strong enough single core performance that the battle size isn't really affecting anything here, but really, it was all down to the maps and the Intel HD. If you're on one of the more intensive maps, you'd see around 30ish FPS. If you're on one of the simpler maps, you'd see anywhere from 40 to 60 FPS. So Mount & Blade Warband Viking Conquest, a very popular game out on Steam, does run on our £1 computer. Now, there's no way at all that Black Mesa of all games should run on a £1 computer. This is a gorgeous looking title, and the Zen levels, which are some of the most intensive areas of the game, are pretty much pushing the source engine as far as I've ever seen it. And because of this, even with potato options, we returned 19 FPS on average, and 1% lows down to 15 FPS, so this looks to be the limit of the computer. Or is it? Because I wasn't going to stop there, because I am used to Intel HD and tweaking. Running the game through Gary's mod, so an older version of the source engine, which lets us turn off shadows and detailed props, in a 640x480 resolution, it doesn't look too bad, because I do quite like the source engine aesthetic even when it's turned down low, and we did return 38 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 27 FPS. And given Black Mesa is now officially supported through Gary's mod, you can play the game like this. You can turn off some of the menus and you can just play through the entire game without spawning in a voxel agila, and it will work fine. So Black Mesa does run, you're just going to have to use an older version of the source engine via Gary's mod to be able to do it. Now, you can hate on The Sims 4 as much as you want, because at the end of the day, it definitely has its drawbacks and far too many expansion packs, but it does run spectacularly well. The game will default to an older DirectX 9 version when it detects a graphics chip like this, and chose low and medium settings in 1080p. That's right, a 1080p resolution for this old £1 computer. I didn't think we'd be seeing anything in full HD today, but no, and the worst bit is, this is full HD and it returns 64 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 51 FPS. Now, don't get me wrong, it is missing a lot of the effects and it doesn't look particularly great. It sort of looks like a fancier version of The Sims 2, but with less detail in certain places. But can you really be annoyed? I mean, The Sims 4 isn't great, but you can give the engine credit. It will run at 1080p 60 FPS on a £1 computer. Speed up wasn't a problem because we got the Core i5, and really, it was a perfect experience. I've got no problems with Sims 4 here. Now, Fable Anniversary is a pretty terrible remaster. It generally looks pretty hideous and pretty ugly, and even with low settings in 768p, which is as low as the game will go, it runs appallingly. Honestly, for the visuals on display, 14 FPS with 1% lows down to 9 FPS is pretty terrible. But this is an Unreal Engine title. This is Unreal Engine 3 with a bit of Unreal Engine 4 in there. Someone will have to correct me. Which means that I'm pretty good at tweaking around the engine, which meant that I have now made an ultra-low performance config for Fable Anniversary that runs on Intel HD. I was getting far too carried away here, but hey, I wanted to see if we could get it running because there wasn't much information online about performance tweaks, so I thought, well, someone's got to do it, and what better time than now? And with my ultra-low config at 800x600, we managed to get just shy of 60 FPS. Now, the game did look more vibrant when it was less smeary, which it had going for it, but pop-in was downright terrible because, for some reason, draw distances in this game tend to be a little bit buggy at lower options, which is likely why you have to do it through the config files in the engine, and after all of this, what's the point when you can just load up Fable The Lost Chapters, which will run with medium options in 720p and return a 46 FPS experience with 1% lows down to 32 FPS. So you really might as well run Fable The Lost Chapters, but also for some people that were interested, I got a bit too carried away with this tweaking and wondered what if we could do the opposite and use these tweaks to fix Fable Anniversary, and I was messing around on my actual computer and managed to get it to run at 4K with this ultra high maximum preset options that I've made myself in a config that made Fable Anniversary actually look good. So maybe that'll be a video at some point. Anyway, Fable runs great, but just run the older version. I did want to give Terraria a bit of a go because even the latest version does work on Intel HD. It has got more intensive over the years, now needing low settings in 720p, but the game has some weird VSync options going on. I'm not too sure because it wouldn't work with the Steam overlay. It would work with MSI Afterburner, which predominantly I've tried not to use here because it's a little bit buggy on Intel HD and tended to sap performance, and I wanted to know what was going on, but here we returned 30 FPS, and 1% lows down to 30 FPS as well, because the game was locked at 30 FPS via VSync. I tried changing around the settings, I tried doing bits and pieces like that. Nothing. It just wouldn't work. It was nothing to do with MSI Afterburn, it was nothing to do with Steam, it just seems like something weird was going on with the drivers and VSync. I'm assuming it was trying to do something in full screen, but I honestly don't know here. But Terraria does work, provided you don't mind a locked and quite smooth 30 FPS. Now, I did want to get a modern city builder in here because we know it'll run some titles like Banished and bits and pieces like that, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, you could find out a lot of the performance from this PC by typing into Google Intel HD benchmarks. But this is a bit more than that. I want to see what modern titles it can run and what kind of performance we can get out of it. So with low settings plus the UI fix mod, which is just called FPS Boost, which you will need here because the game is broken, this fixes a bug that's been left in the game where the UI tries to update 10,000 times a second. It works about as well as you'd expect without this mod running. But still, with low settings and this fix in place in a 240p resolution, provided you know where everything is in this game, and given the fact that Intel HD for all its faults does really remarkably good scaling. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a display adapter, and it is very good at being a display adapter, which means at these lower resolutions, well, it's actually quite crisp. I mean, as crisp as 240p can be. We return 28 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 21 FPS, and of course, zooming in would lower this slightly, but when you're actually playing the game and building your city, it looks quite ugly. But provided you know what buttons are what, you can actually play City Skylines quite well on this computer. You just have to have muscle memory of where everything is. But finally, can it run Crysis? And by Crysis, I mean properly with DirectX 10. Yes, we've seen that DirectX 9 actually works remarkably well. As a Windows XP experience running DirectX 9, we've seen that, well, you know what, it will handle low settings at 30ish FPS. And moving up to DirectX 10 certainly does put a dent on performance, which will eventually stabilize. Now, our issues weren't due to single-core performance, they were down entirely to the iGPU, because we are asking it to do a few more bits, and we returned 32 FPS on average, with 1% lows down to 22 FPS. Now, some people may be disappointed by this figure, but I'm going to remind you, we spent £1 on this computer under the pretense it probably wouldn't work, and here we are at the end of the day, playing Crysis with the DirectX 10 version at above 30 FPS. Yes, it's low settings, yes, it's a low resolution, yes, you're probably better off running it on Debra's Windows XP install, but look at the bigger picture. We are at a point now where these cheap computers that people are getting rid of for pocket change now run Crysis, which I think is the biggest turning point of all this. These are modern titles that people are still playing every day. This isn't my classic benchmark suite. This is as close to what you can run on DirectX 10 as possible in the modern day. And it's working pretty good. So overall performance isn't spectacular, until you remember that, hang on a second, this is from a PC we paid just £1 for. And I haven't exactly been the nicest with these benchmarks because, let's be very honest, we could have just stuck with Debra's installed the Windows XP and gone, well, it plays Unreal Gold fine, it plays old Counter-Strike fine. To be fair, I did actually test Counter-Strike Source and it does in fact run it absolutely fine. So these benchmarks have been fairly brutal and actually quite reminiscent of our real benchmark suite, at least for cards that only go up to DirectX 10, and it's actually managed to run quite a few of them. I mean, some of the more notable standouts are GTA 5. Yes, it's in 240p and looks downright hideous, but this is the first time ever that we've had it actually run. which is astonishing for a bootfair computer. Usually we're not even beginning to contemplate GTA 5, maybe Vice City if we're lucky. So you know what, I'm going to call that a big win. When it comes to other titles, Counter-Strike Go is playable in simpler scenarios, things like KSP and all of those older indie games, they'll work absolutely fine, and Crysis, even within reason, does launch with the DirectX 10 mode. Now, of course, this system is not without its limitations because you can run older versions of Minecraft absolutely fine, but you will have to stick to those older versions because the latest releases, well, we don't have an up-to-date version of OpenGL that it will actually support. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you can still play a lot of those easier-to-run titles on it. And this is all on Windows 10. All we've done is given the iGPU, the Intel HD, a little boost in the overclock in the BIOS, and we've run it on the latest modified drivers, which even then, they're not exactly all too different from the actual standard ones from Intel, they're just a bit more guaranteed to work. So for a £1 computer, it is astonishingly good performance. And that's really my biggest takeaway from this, is we've managed to do an awful lot of gaming on something that cost us just £1. And that thereabout sums up the £1 computer, because I was umming and ahhing about whether or not we should upgrade it, but at that point, this video's no longer about the £1 computer. This video has been pretty much entirely focused in and around the cheap computer we bought and what we've been able to run on it. And I think you can probably tell from the way the video's gone that I've had a lot of fun doing this, tweaking games down to get them to work, just pushing the system to its limits, even to the stage where we're modifying RAM timings to eke out an extra 1 or 2 frames per second. And that's kind of what this channel's about, so this is sort of a throwback to the older style of video where we're not so much talking about in-depth metrics, we're just taking a fun look and seeing what it will actually do. Yes, it was filthy and needed completely cleaning, and yes, we've had to change out the power supply for another one I had on hand, but for what we spent, you can do so much more with this computer. Out of the box the way it is now, it's got an SSD if you actually just want to use it day to day. You do have a ½ terabyte hard drive that admittedly doesn't sound all too healthy, but you could wipe that and use it for storage for at least however long it stays alive. And you've got a computer that will run Linux, not particularly well given the state of Intel HD drivers over on Linux, but it will work fine for web browsing, or you can run Windows 10 or Windows 11 IoT, or, as Debra had it, a completely overkill Windows XP computer. So if you've enjoyed this video, I know it's not been exactly technical, and it's been more troubleshooting than anything, but that's one of the reasons why, I thought I'm going to include most of the troubleshooting segments. I mean, even then, I've probably got about 4 or 5 hours of footage, and I've managed to cut it down quite substantially from there. Anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of nonsense, but at the end of the day, this is somehow our best bootfair find yet. So thank you all very much for watching, and good night.